Tell us about yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Stacy Thomas. I grew up in Rockwell, Texas. I moved out to Arlington for my first degree at ETA. I got that in 3 years, and then I went to work as a scribe in the emergency room. And then I worked in orthopedics for about 3 years. And during my time as a scribe is when I really got to see the work of the nurse and how they interacted with the providers and how everyone worked together as a team. And I realized there that I wish I had done nursing for my first degree, but that's okay. So I started doing scribing and then saw nursing, and then I decided to do this accelerated online program. And I really enjoy my clinicals, and I see myself in a critical care setting. That's where I think I would thrive.
Where do you see yourself in your career in 2 or 3 years?
Well, in 2 to 3 years, I think I would want to hopefully still be working in a critical care unit, hopefully if I get a job in one. But also I've been considering CRNA as another career moving forward. It's one that I was able to learn a lot about when I was working in the OR and with my orthopedic surgeon. I was able to see just exactly what a CRNA did, and I was able to talk to them and learn about their life and what their job entailed and what it took for them to get there. And so it's definitely a career that I see myself doing later on, possibly.
What are your strengths and what are some weaknesses?
So I would say a strength of mine is providing compassionate care to my patients. I know what it's like to have a family member in the hospital, and I've always enjoyed having a nurse that truly cared about their patients, and I believe I would provide that. I also really enjoy, and I'm really good at working on it as a team with peers. When I was working as a scribe in the orthopedic field, I was working with a fantastic group of people, and it was awesome to know that they had my back and I had theirs. So working together as a team and compassionate care are two of my strengths. I would say a weakness of mine would be being a bit of a perfectionist. I do enjoy, or I like to make sure details are taken care of, and I like to make sure everything is crossed off the list before I move on to the next step. And that sometimes can get in the way when I'm doing my job because I rely on that sometimes more. I would say another weakness of mine is being a little too direct with my peers. I have to also remember to consider my coworkers' emotions and their personal characteristics before I say things sometimes.
Talk to us about the value of teamwork. What did you do in your last job to contribute towards teamwork in an environment?
So the last job I worked for before the current job I'm in right now was at an orthopedic office, and I was working with the lead surgeon there, and he had a team of 2 PAs and an NP, in addition to schedulers and medical assistants and a handful of scribes. I was the lead scribe there. And it was so important for us to work together as a team. One thing I started doing when I was there was we had this thing, it was called Skype Messenger, where we could talk to the people around us via just like a direct message. And when I was there, I started messaging the surgery scheduler about the patient that we were seeing, if they were ready to set up surgery or not. It just sped up the process for the patient and for their visit and for the surgeon. She got the information that she needed. I told her the patient's name, the type of surgery, and if they had a date or if the surgeon had a date in mind, she would know that. She would print out the information, come back into the back area where my surgeon was, and she would be standing there, and she would lead the patients down into her office to where she could talk to them about surgery and what to expect. And she told me that no one had ever done that before, and she said that it was such a streamlined process, and it just made everything go smoother and faster, and the surgeon loved it, and everyone was on the same page. And so that's one thing that I did when I was there.
Please describe a situation that required you to complete a number of things at the same time. How did you decide what was most important and what was the result?
So, I'll say my schedule when I was working as a scribe was very, very busy. I always had a lot of tasks to do. I always prioritize things that have to be done in the morning because he always has surgeries in the morning. So I would make sure the day before I would prep for surgery that morning, and then while I was in surgery, I would prep for him in the afternoon. I always had assignments done for the scribes so they knew what providers they were with, from what time to what time, if they were working with multiple different providers and if they were going to different offices. And it was always a good result. Everyone was informed where they were going to go. If there was any changes, I communicated that as soon as I knew of the changes, and the scribes always appreciated it. They enjoyed that I was in charge of them because when my manager used to be in charge of them, she wasn't really aware of the dynamic between providers and scribes and who worked well together. So I was able to plan accordingly, and then I would just do what I needed to get done. Like, for example, with the surgeries, he would be doing surgeries in the morning, so I would prep for that the day before. I would always have people talking to me while I'm in surgery, asking me about, is the boss going to see this patient today or this patient tomorrow? So I would ask him in between cases when he would take breaks in between cases. So yeah, that's it.